Hey guys, what's going on? This is the conservative speaking, and I wanted to talk about the color folks calling themselves African Americans. So the big question is, why are they doing it? Why do the color folks continue to call themselves African Americans, even though the people that are doing it were born here in America, their parents were born here in America, and their grandparents were born here in America? As a matter of fact, most blacks that call themselves African Americans um, yet cannot physically trace their origins to Africa. So, in order to find out why the color folks call themselves African Americans, we first have to find the origin of the word African American and where did it come from. Now, Jesse Jackson, one of the so-called black activists, he was actually known as a black leader to the blacks. He was the one that originally came coined the term African Americans and stated that the blacks need to use that to associate themselves with Africa as opposed to associating themselves with America, because America because the whole ideology is that America is not their country, that they were ripped away from Africa by the white man, and the white man brought them over here to America, therefore um, erasing any type of identity that they have with Africa. Now, now obviously, a person like me, a realist, would know that that is 100% nonsense. However, people like Jesse Jackson and people like Al Sharpton and all these other people have been able to convince the blacks that this is the way that they should think. Um, because truth be told, black people are only going to believe what you tell them. And if you sound credible enough, if you come across as a person that sounds credible, and if you sound believable enough, the blacks will just go along with whatever you're saying. Now, Jesse Jackson was coined for saying the word African American, but the word the word has been in the dictionary, in the Oxford Dictionary, as early as 1835, but the word originated even way back in 1782, when there was a sermon that was that word which there was a sermon that stated that well, I believe that there was a sermon that was published out in Philadelphia, and it stated that it was published by an African American. So I guess that's where the origin of the word African American came from. But even during that time, and this was the time where you had some of the blacks that were slaves, they never really used the term African American at all. It wasn't really until the late 80s, when Jesse Jackson brought it up, that black people started to then call themselves African Americans. Although black none of the blacks that call themselves African Americans can even prove that they're from Africa at all. They call themselves African Americans even though they were born here in America. But again, if you come off as credible, if you come off as believable, and a person like Jesse Jackson was influential enough, he, sorry about that. Um, he actually was credible enough, believable enough, and he was actually able to speak fluently to the people to make them believe that he knew what he was talking about, and therefore what he was saying, the message was able to come off as fluently. All right, because the way that he was able to derive his message was a powerful one. He was able to um he was able to raise his voice, but raise his voice in a way where his message seemed credible enough for the people to then believe that they should call themselves African Americans. And this is the problem with the blacks. The problem with the blacks, and the reason why most black people will not cherish, I mean, will not be able to flourish and be able to thrive in this great nation that we call America, is because black people have chosen to follow people as opposed to following God. Now, prior to the civil rights movement, black people knew better. Um, most blacks were married. Most blacks worked. Most blacks had businesses, and this was at a time where some of the blacks actually lived in segregation, but they never really looked at it as a crutch. Um, they knew that they could have great opportunities if they were to work hard, believe in God, and allow God to guide them the way. Okay. Um, it wasn't until after the civil rights movement was signed into law that that's when things fell apart for the blacks, because black people started to now look upon other leaders to lead them as opposed to allowing God to lead them. So if you can sound credible, then the blacks will follow you. Case in point, Jim Jones. And I'm not talking about the rapper Jim Jones. I'm talking about the leader, the so-called leader, Jim Jones, was able to convince hundreds of people in San Francisco to leave their homes and to follow his congregation. All right. And the people that live and the people that follow Jim Jones were 90% black. Go figure. Because Jim Jones played into the idea of him stating there, as a matter of fact, there was a speech that he made in the 70s where he talked to his congregation and he said, "I know I'm black, and you need to be a part of your blackness. Follow me, and I will lead the way." And the blacks did it. Okay? This is how gullible the blacks are. They're so gullible that Jim Jones convinced them to then drink the Kool-Aid, because they would live forever if they were to drink the Kool-Aid, which really what it was nothing but cyanide, and the blacks did it. The blacks were gullible enough to actually follow someone that is not God. And because of that, most people died. All right, over 900 people died. Most of them were the blacks. Okay, it just goes to show you that black people would rather feel good than do good, and they have been engineered in a way. They have been conditioned to believe that their blackness means more than anything else in the world, rather than being morally straight and having character. All right. They chose their blackness over morality and character. All right. And because of that, this is why you're getting the things that you're getting from the blacks. This is the reason why they care more about saying being black and black liberation theology and just being pro black, collectivism, tribalism, group thinking. No, we're black. We need to stick together. The white man is the enemy. It's the white man that's the enemy. Even though it was the white man, Jim Jones, that convinced them to drink the Kool-Aid, which pretty much was nothing but cyanide, and because of that, hundreds of people died. But remember, the white man is the enemy. Amazing. And so I have proof. Okay, if you don't believe me, as well, as far as black people, all right, as far as African Americans using the term to disassociate themselves from America, and to associate themselves with a country that they know nothing about, nor would they want any parts of. Okay, considering all the turmoil that's going on in Africa, case in point is Juneteenth. Now, Juneteenth was supposed to be a day of celebration for the blacks. All right. The whole idea of Juneteenth was to celebrate a few black people who thought they were slaves because they were not informed that the Emancipation of Proclamation was signed 2 years 2 years ago, and they happened to get the message late. All right, so there were a group of slaves in Galveston, Texas, who were unaware that the Emancipation of Proclamation was signed 2 years later, and they happened to find out, and because of that, that's the reason why they're holding Juneteenth. To me, it's a stupid holiday. Okay, because okay, so now you're celebrating that black people are free. Nice. Um, but is it stopping them from the blacks killing each other? Is it stopping them from 70% of black babies being born out of wedlock? Is it stopping black women from killing 1,800 black babies every single day, um, due to them aborting their child at the hands of Planned Parenthood? Is it stopping any of that? Okay, but I have proof, and I just want you I just want you to take a look at what I'm showing you, because this will truly show you once and for all that black people care more about being black than doing good. Watch this. So, as you can see right here, the headline reads Juneteenth violence, at least 8 killed, dozens injured during Saturday's shooting. Now, this was during Saturday, June 19th of this year. At least 8 people were fatally shot and dozens were injured during parties or gatherings or on related to the Juneteenth holiday. Injured in 7 parts of the country, according to officials and local reports. Shootings on Saturday, a newly declared federal holiday honoring Juneteenth, were reported during events in Colorado, California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and South Carolina, among others, with at least 33 wounded, according to authorities and multiple reports. So, for instance, Oakland, California, 22-year-old San Francisco man was killed and 6 others were wounded in a shooting in Oakland near a Juneteenth celebration. They don't know if it was connected, but trust me, you know it is. Absolutely, you know it is. Okay. The other 5 victims, 16 to 27 males, ages 16 to 27, and 2 adult women were hospitalized in stable condition. Okay, let's go to. All right, and then there's a statement stating, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a guy with a gun pointing at a car. Everyone started sprinting and screaming, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, this is what the blacks do. Now, let's go to Philadelphia. A triple shooting on that same day killed 2 men and wounded a 3-year-old boy in West Philadelphia. Gunfire shortly before 2:30 p.m. hit 2 23-year-old men multiple times. Both were taken to Presbyterian Hospital by private vehicle and were pronounced dead minutes later. The child was shot 3 times in the leg, listed in stable condition. And then here's the police commissioner. We can't live in fear. As a community member and as a resident and as a parent, we cannot allow this to take over our lives. These people say the same thing time and time and time and time and time again, and yet their policies allow for the blacks to continue to kill each other because no one holds their feet to the fire. They say things just to make it look as if they care. because in the end, these are public officials, and these public officials are responsible for the citizens' safety in the city. So they have to come out and at least act as if they care. But ask yourself, do these people really care? Because if they really cared, then they wouldn't put out policies that would allow the thugs to continue to keep killing each other. Outlaw describes the shooting as disturbing, sickening, blah, 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 blah. We should never tolerate violence against our city, as all of us, not just police, are charged with the responsibility of keeping them safe and danger from harm. But yet, in the city of Philadelphia, the homicide rate goes up every single year. Last year, there were one homicide away from 500. All right. Already, their homicide rate is close to 300, and by the time 2021 lets out, it's possible that they can surpass the amount of homicides that they had last year. Later in the day, 3 others were shot at a graduation party at 7:30. Now keep in mind, this is Juneteenth. This is supposed to be a celebration for the blacks. The victims were 2 men ages 18 and 21 and a 36-year-old woman. Okay, let's move forward. Baton Rouge, 2 people were killed and 4 others were wounded during a shooting early Saturday morning following a concert at a Baton Rouge bar. I mean, let's keep going. The deceased victims were reported reported was Ladarius Alexander and 25-year-old Kyron Walton. Granger, Indiana, 5 people were shot. 1 died during an overnight Juneteenth party in Granger. I rest my case. This was a Juneteenth party celebrating Juneteenth. Police identified the victim as 26-year-old Victor Antoine Kyle Jr. The other 4 victims injured were not considered life-threatening. Aurora, Colorado. 1 person died and 4 others were wounded in an early Sunday morning shooting during a gathering related to a Juneteenth celebration. According to the report, the crowd has gathered in a strip mall parking lot where shots rang out around 4:10 a.m. At the Denver police, in reporting that the group had begun to congregate in a parking lot after organizers of a Juneteenth-related event at one of the strip mall locations began denying people entry. And obviously, this will always lead to a situation happening among the blacks. It's almost as if they forgot that they're celebrating life, or that they're supposed to celebrate life. Let's go to Clover, South Carolina. 3 people were shot during a late night Juneteenth celebration on Saturday. I mean, look at the mass shootings that happen on one night. All right, these people want to whimp and whine and cry when you have a mass shooting situation that a white person committed. But look at the mass shootings that happen every single day in the black community, and look at the mass shootings that happen on Juneteenth. Let's go to Flint, Michigan. Always love Flint. 19-year-old Michigan woman dies after exchanging gunfire with a police officer who was controlling traffic near a weekend Juneteenth parade. You can't make this up. You really cannot make this up. The Flint officer was fired upon by the lone occupant in the vehicle who drove up to him at the traffic point. Upon taking fire, the officer returned fire, striking the suspect. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, what more proof do you need that black people care about feeling good than doing good? Okay? In their blackness, they trust. Black people care more about their blackness than being moral and having character. Okay? But these are the same people that are celebrating being African Americans. And here they are killing other African Americans. I guess the best way to celebrate the liberation of African Americans is by shedding their blood. Amazing. That's all I wanted to show you. Amazing stuff, huh? That's what you get out of the African American community. Um, Black people need to focus more on doing right than feeling right. If the blacks were to care more about following God as opposed to following their black skin, that's when the blacks can really find salvation and really find peace. They come up with a they come up with a ridiculous holiday, Juneteenth. Did it stop the blacks from harming each other? No. Did it stop the blacks from being immoral? No. Did it stop the blacks from lacking character? No. You can take every single stigma away. Is it going to make the blacks do good? No. It'll make them feel good, but it won't make them do good. The best way for the color folks to really, really have peace is for them to follow God as opposed to following another human being. And once they do that, then they'll be able to find actual peace in their life. But until then, they will forever live their lives in darkness. But let me know what you think. Uh, Leave a comment below after you subscribe to my channel. Smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe, 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 subscribe. Because I will constantly give you more talent, more talent, more content that you'll be able to view and to have a discussion with, or even be entertained by. And so, with that being said, this is The Conservative signing out. Have a blessed day.